ahead on 12 News, a solution for getting stuck in the snow, how a Plymouth company is making life easier for people with disabilities. Then, a Robbinsdale man who's made a visual impact from here all the way to Disney World. But first, a likely case of animal cruelty.
She was found outside the other night. It was negative 10 degrees.
And the local rescue group that stepped in to help. 12 News starts right now. It's not just people who are suffering in this bitter cold. Animals are also feeling the chill.
Veterinarians say animals can suffer the effects of this weather in just minutes. And for one local puppy, she's lucky a Good Samaritan found her before it was too late. Here's Cassie Bonstrom.
This is Nora.
If it looks like this puppy is comfortable in someone's arms,
what a good girl.
It's because just days ago she was cold and alone.
And she was found outside the other night. It was negative 10 degrees. She was tied to a bus bench.
A Good Samaritan found the dog in Minneapolis and brought her to Secondhand Hounds, a rescue group in Minnetonka.
She was shivering, of course, but frostbite hadn't set in, so we think that the finder luckily found her pretty quickly after she was tied outside. You know, by morning she would have been frozen.
Nora's story is a sad reminder of what some people are capable of, but it's also a good reminder that pet owners need to be extra cautious right now.
They're very vulnerable at temperatures like these, especially their extremities, so ear tips, paws.
Dr. Melanie Sharp says it's mostly common sense.
A really good gauge of how long your animal should be outside is just how long you're comfortable being outside, so it affects them very quickly.
But certain types of animals do fare better than others.
Animals with short coats or hairless breeds are the most at risk.
When a dog's outside, it's important to read its body language.
A lot of times animals will try to make themselves as small as possible to conserve heat, and so being hunched down and shivering, head down, those are signs that an animal is cold.
And a sign that animal needs to come inside.
If she was out there much longer, she would have ended up frostbitten, and that they can lose part of their ears, their tails.
Fortunately for little Nora, someone was there to do just that.
Nora is now safely living with a foster and will never have to spend another night out in the cold. In Minnetonka, I'm Cassie Bonstrom, 12 News.
If you'd like more information about Secondhand Hounds or about Nora, who will soon be available for adoption, you can visit our website. It's 12.tv.
A New Year's Eve fire destroyed a home in Plymouth. As you can see here, only the shell remains of this 93-year-old structure. The home just west of Medicine Lake was fully involved when firefighters arrived. They fought it from outside because the fire and the weight of the ice on the house made the building unstable. The house was vacant, and the cause of the fire is under investigation by the State Fire Marshal's office.
This extreme cold is putting firefighters to the test. A recent townhome fire in Brooklyn Park became a 2-alarm fire because firefighters say more resources are needed in the cold. They wear the same gear in the winter as they do in the summer, but they face different problems like frozen water pumps and hoses. There's also a personal safety issue.
With the crews working, though, if they're sweating and then they come out, they tend to get, they're susceptible to frostbite, hypothermia, all those things that we worry about people being outside. I have to worry about the firefighters.
Firefighters change into insulated rubber gloves to keep their hands dry and warm when they're away from the fire, but of course those would melt in a burning building.
Meantime, the investigation into a large apartment fire last July in Plymouth is now complete. The State Fire Marshal's office ruled the cause of the Vicksburg Village apartment fire to be undetermined. Investigators identified multiple ignition possibilities and were unable to isolate a primary source. While nobody was hurt, the fire damaged 20 apartment units. Well, getting around in the ice and snow can be challenging on 2 feet.
But the task is even more difficult if you're in a wheelchair. Reporter Sonia Goins shows us how a Plymouth company is helping wheelchair users navigate the snow and ice with ease.
Tracy and Sam Tabeka have been in wheelchairs since they were both young.
I was in a car accident when I was 8.
But the couple is not letting the chair confine them. Both are avid wheelchair racers.
Twin Cities is a hard one to qualify at.
They like to play and work outdoors, but that can be worrisome in the winter.
Your wheels just kind of bury into the snow and you don't go very far very fast.
I think every wheelchair user has probably caught their front wheels in the snow and fallen out. But if I lean forward and push hard, they're going to dig in.
This is what it's like to wheel around in the snow.
If the snow is, a lot harder and crunchier, it would be even more difficult to do.
To make life easier, Tracy and Sam are using a new device called Wheelblades.
They're like little skis and you just snap them on your front wheels, and you really don't have to worry about tipping out forward because they're not going to let you go anywhere.
Wheelblades are attached to the front wheels.
Okay, you want to do your wheels first? Sure. You can really go fast with them, where I would never do this just with my wheels, because they would catch for sure, and then I would flip right out.
Now Sam and Tracy can do things like walk their dog.
Rocket, come on.
Without getting stuck in the snow.
They really slide along real nice, and they allow me to keep up with Rocket.
Wheelblades are distributed by Plymouth-based Ottobock.
I think they're great. They're easy to use, and they really allow you to push through the snow like I haven't been able to before.
Our daughter's 3, and she wants to do all the things that all of her friends do, all the other kids do. So this allows us to be able to get out with her and go do those things.
In Rogers, Sonia Goins, 12 News.
Wheelblades cost about $350 a pair, and for more information, you can go to 12.tv. A former mayor of Brooklyn Center has died. Dean Nyquist was mayor from 1978 through 1990. His wife says he died suddenly on New Year's Day, possibly of a heart attack. In 1996, he was named to the Brooklyn Center Hall of Fame. He was known for his commitment to families and youth. He was also an original member of the Brooklyn Center Rotary Club.
The Bottineau light rail line is supposed to help improve mobility, but could it also improve our health? A new report released by Hennepin County says it can. A health impact assessment found that the Bottineau line could improve physical activity levels and access to healthy food. The report also assessed resident nutrition. Of the residents who live in cities along the Bottineau line, the report says fewer than 1/3 eat the recommended amounts of fruits and vegetables, and the 13-mile route would start by Target Field and end in Brooklyn Park. The study will be used for future planning along the light rail route. Well, when you think of frozen yogurt, you probably think summer, not 5 degrees below zero.
But that is not bothering a frozen yogurt shop that opened up recently in Maple Grove. Menchie's has been open for just over 2 weeks, and if you go, you'll find a warm fireplace to shake off the outdoor chill before you order up frozen treats. And even in ice-cold December and January, business has been better than expected.
And it's been fairly remarkable that we've been able to have the success that we've had given the weather obstacles that have been in our path, right? The first day we opened, it was 0 degrees. The next day it was snowy with ice. So it only got from bad to worse. But in fact, the Maple Grove community has embraced us wholeheartedly.
The business owner says the December opening was not intentional. It was a matter of finding the right real estate and then opening as quickly as possible. Coming up, a Robbinsdale man with an eye for design, how he's had a visual impact here and across the country.
Then later in sports, a Plymouth hockey player will be skating for gold next month in Sochi. We'll have his story.
But first, a brief warm-up Friday, then another cold slap in the face this weekend. There's a saying that if you do what you love, you'll never work a day in your life.
One Robbinsdale man has had a decades-long career as a sculptor, and chances are longtime Twin Cities residents will know his work. Reporter Shannon Slatton introduces us to Bob Johnson.
You could get an American history lesson inside the basement of Bob Johnson's home.
For my amusement.
From famous statues to his own designs, everything here is what Bob Johnson made in his downtime.
Sculpture is so labor intensive.
But it represents only a fraction of the work he's done on a much larger scale. For years, when a business needed a 3D design, Bob Johnson could make it.
I think I made 9 of those octopus car wash.
He made giant teeth, he made bank signs, he made statues for parks and trees for Disney World.
There I am out in Oregon making a mold of this.
But perhaps one of his most well-known creations were the 2 cows he did for Ewald Dairy.
Got so much response, he says he's going to change all of his advertising to sculptured heads.
The sculpture landed on the cover of a national advertising magazine in 1954.
My wife thought that would be on Easy Street.
Not quite, but it made for an interesting career.
I like to think that my ability to solve structural problems is almost more important than being a fine artist.
Even at 91, Bob Johnson is still designing, whether a snow sculpture in his yard
It lasted until it melted, which wasn't very long.
or a new idea he can't wait to try.
Don't you think it'd be fabulous to put a seal inside that iceberg?
And when that's done,
Just put it on the shelf.
he'll move to the next one. In Robbinsdale, Shannon Slatton, 12 News.
One of Bob Johnson's first commercial projects after he returned from World War II was making papier-mâché floats. He made floats that appeared in the Orange Bowl Parade and the Aquatennial, and still at it.
You never know what you'll find in his house,
That's
I think.
right, I bet. Well, coming up, a Park Center student with some good advice for taking on a task.
But first, in sports, we catch up with Osseo boxer Caleb Truax as he gets ready for his big Friday night fight. John Jacobson is in next.
A strong month of December on the ice helped lead to a great start to 2014 for a Plymouth man. On New Year's Day, Blake Wheeler was one of 8 Minnesotans named to the U.S. Olympic men's hockey team. The 27-year-old Wheeler netted 10 goals in December as a forward for the Winnipeg Jets, including 2 in this recent game against the Wild. Wheeler played hockey and football at Breck School in Golden Valley and won a state title in each sport for the Mustangs. Wild forward Zach Parisi is also on the U.S. team's 25-man roster. The game in Sochi, Russia will begin next month. Born in Robbinsdale, Wheeler grew up in Plymouth and played in the Wayzata Youth Hockey Association. The new year in boxing starts with an ESPN Friday Night Fights card at Target Center. Osseo native Caleb Truax, a middleweight, fights late replacement Ozzie Duran in one of the co-headline fights. Jay Wilcox caught up with Truax at the gym.
Thanks, John, and it is fight week for Caleb Truax, and not fighting Roberto Duran, it's Ozzie Duran, but how much did the change affect your training at all, if at all, Caleb?
Not really at all. I mean, I made a few adjustments as far as game plan and just what he brings to the table, but there was only 3 weeks to go before the fight, so there was not really enough time to make too many changes, and his style didn't call for too many changes, so I just took it in stride, and I'm ready to go.
What have you been able to learn about him so far? What kind of challenge will he present for you?
He's tough, man. He's been in there with a lot of good fighters and given them all a good fight. I've seen him fight live a few times, so I was familiar with him before the late change of opponent. But he's tough. He brings that veteran experience to the table, and I just have to figure out a way to solve him and do what I always do, and that's put on a show.
Part of being a great boxer is, having a lot of ways to win, but also it looks like you've been stepping up the offense. Was that something that was a conscious decision for you and your team, that, the entertainment value that you need to step up to?
Absolutely. I think we've talked about it before. After the Jermaine Taylor fight, I just realized that I had to be more offensive, had to throw more punches, put more combinations together, and it's paid off in the ring, and it's getting me exposure on TV because that's what people want to see. They want to see knockouts. They want to see offensive fireworks. They don't want to see defense too much. So it's working out well for me.
How much does this mean for you to get an opportunity to be seen around the country without, people having to come here? Some of them obviously around the area will be watching live, but via ESPN, how much does that help your career?
It helps a ton, man. Any type of television exposure is what boxers all fight for, and especially being from Minnesota, we don't get that much as a guy from, say, Las Vegas or California would get. So any added extra attention I get, I welcome it with open arms, man, and hopefully they'll come back after this fight.
What's ahead after this, depending on how things go? Do you have some ideas, some things in mind that you'd like to see happen for your career?
Yeah, I'd like to get maybe 1 or 2 more fights and then challenge for a title in 2014, but I'm not looking past this. I let the promoter and my manager worry about that stuff. They got a plan, and they say they don't, but I think they got something brewing, but we'll see after the 3rd.
Former heavyweight champion Mike Tyson is one of the promoters of the fight. The other headline bout is an IBF junior lightweight title fight as Argenis Mendez defends his title against Francis Barthélemy. How does weather affect fishing in the winter? Terry Tuma tackles that topic in this week's Channel 12 Ice Fishing Tip.
I just had a question asked the other day about, does a snowstorm or falling snow affect ice fishing success? The answer to that question is definitely yes. And what it does is very similar to rain or a thunderstorm in the summertime. And so what we need to do is really understand, to get out there just prior to that snow falling or prior to a snowstorm, you're going to have some very good success, but it really turns the fish on. But we have to understand that means that a front is coming through. So therefore then, right after that snowstorm, the first day after that snowstorm, you're going to see that bite slow down. The second day is what's going to be a real tough bite. And the third day, now the weather has stabilized, so the bite is going to pick up again. But we still can catch these fish when that cold front is sliding through. And here again, we have to just finesse smaller baits, smaller lures, subtle jigging action, and we are going to be successful. Be sure to tune in next week for another tip right here.
Thanks, Terry, and that's a look at sports.
Thanks, John. We'll be right back.
The school is back in session in the Osseo School District, and one Park Center senior is already hard at work.
Kai Hui has a heart for helping, and he isn't afraid of taking on new challenges.
Have you ever had a conversation with a friend without saying anything?
It's fitting we find Park Center senior Kai Hui in his social science class.
All of a sudden you're looking at yourself from a different perspective.
This 17-year-old has a passion for the sciences, and he loves taking a creative approach.
You have to be more open-minded and think of different ways to solve things.
He's got strong natural ability, but he's willing to work hard too. I mean, he's willing to push himself, take those higher level courses.
Shoulder shrug.
Teachers say Kai is the kind of student you want in class. He's a leader in student government, in National Honor Society with a nearly straight A grade point average, and he puts his head down and works hard at any job he's given.
My father taught me that if you're going to do something, you better do it right, and you better get it done on time.
Kai applies that drive and determination to volunteering as well. In less than 2 years, he's given more than 350 hours of his time to Hennepin County Medical Center.
I work for the food shelf, and I also am a part of the summer meals program for children.
Kai's efforts recently earned him the Gold Level Presidential Volunteer Service Award.
I think it's unique in a high school student to be so mature and think beyond yourself as much as Kai does.
Different perspectives.
With just a few months left of high school, Kai is about to turn the page on a new chapter with plans to study pre-med in college. He's ready to take on all kinds of new experiences.
Life is like a book, and you want to make your book as colorful as possible.
And Kai will attend the U of M next fall after being accepted into the College of Biological Sciences. And you can look for him next summer. He plans to volunteer again at HCMC. So
a lot of hours.
A lot of hours. That does it for us. Thanks so much for joining us.
Community Corner's up next. We'll see you tomorrow.